Hello, and welcome back to the How to Get an Analytics Job podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking all about analytics and data science portfolios. The guest lecturer for this week is Michael Galarnik, who is a superstar when it comes to building out analytics or data-informed portfolios. So the structure for this podcast episode is that Michael is going to talk through a slide deck he put together on the core essentials of a great or effective portfolio. Then we're going to hop into an interactive portion. And here I've got two different types of portfolios. So we have our Tableau public portfolios, and then we have our GitHub portfolios. So Zane Smith and Connor Brown are my Greensboro College students, and last semester they actually put together a Tableau public portfolio, and Michael's going to be reviewing that. This will provide some great insights if you're looking to get your foot in the door and start your first analytics portfolio. Then we're going to focus on GitHub and pull up Jay Sueño's GitHub portfolio. And this is, if you are mid or late stage in your analytics career, a great example of how you can build out a much more intensive portfolio. This podcast episode is brought to you by Panoply. Panoply is a platform built for analysts that connects over 60 different data sources, making it easy to explore your data in SQL, visualize it in tools like Power BI and Tableau, or even analyze it in your favorite programming language. Click the link in the description down below and you'll get a free 14-day trial to panoply.io. If you appreciate the work that we're doing here, one thing that you can do is actually like, share, or leave a comment on this video. That'll help boost our signal out on the YouTube algorithm and we'll get more views. Without further ado, let's jump into the podcast episode. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. So we have got Michael Galarnik. By the way, Michael, it's been a while. Actually, it's not
It's been a while.
It's been like what, 2 months?
A lot changed in 2 months.
That's true. So give us a quick update. Where are you at now in life?
So I, just for everyone that hasn't listened to me before, I used to work at Scripps Research, where I worked a lot on wearable devices, and I'll talk about it in the talk. And then more recently, I just started a job at Anyscale, where I work in a developer relations role. So I do a lot of writing, editing for content, not always perfectly, but it's a lot of fun because I get to not only talk about portfolios like today, but also work on my own portfolio during work, which is really cool. This is my talk on building a portfolio, specifically tips towards success. So about me, as I just mentioned a little bit briefly, I currently work as a developer relations person at Anyscale. They do a lot of distributed computing, great company, you can look them up. In my job, I do a lot of writing about distributed computing. Sometimes it's about machine learning, data analysis, anything that can be distributed really, which is everything. Previous to that, I worked at Scripps Research, where I analyzed like Fitbit data. So if you've ever worn a Fitbit for a couple of years and you allow your data to be shared, which is a very, very small percentage of people, then I may have analyzed data that's very similar to yours. And in addition, as you might know if you've heard me talk before, or you listen to John David Ever, he has a lot of teachers on his podcast. And I've taught at Stanford Continuing Studies, UC San Diego, LinkedIn Learning, YouTube. I've done a lot of teaching, and this is in addition to my blog and such. So the topic of this talk is really just about a portfolio. And one of the first things about a portfolio is knowing what it is, really. And a definition that I like to use is public evidence of your data analytics or data science skills. And this is really important to mention the public part here, because most of us have Facebooks, Pinterest, Instagram, Snapchat, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a lot for, social media for like, socializing. But why don't you always, additionally have public evidence of your skills? So that's why I'm really encouraging today to make a professional online presence. And it should be noted that oftentimes there's some overlap with your social media that you use for social skills and social media that you use for a job or work. And as far as the goals of building a portfolio, some of it is more straightforward and some of it's a bit more hidden in some ways. So the biggest goal of building a portfolio is to actually show people what you can do instead of actually just telling them you can do something. This is really important as you're more authentic if you have proof you've done something. And it's absolutely essential to show these days because people can lie, of course, but also it's just a really powerful thing to show someone a visualization or some analysis you did. And a big goal of a portfolio is actually to help you get interviews. So some of this is, sharing it on your resume, or people when they look you up, when they look at your resume or whatever, uh, to have some public proof, so you're more likely to get that interview. There's also a networking aspect of a portfolio. So when I'm talking to John David, right now or in 10 minutes or 15 minutes, I'm actually networking. And the way that I got lucky to talk to, Greensboro College and John David and everyone is through my portfolio, because that's how John David and I met, which we can talk about in the QA if you like. And also a big goal of building a portfolio is to actually help you get interviews. Sorry, I said it before, help you with interviews. So a lot of interviews for data analytics or data science, they have take-home challenges. And additionally, at the interviews, oftentimes you have questions. And oftentimes you can reference back your portfolio work to help you with questions during interview. But additionally, for take-home challenges, oftentimes those take-home challenges are really similar to portfolio projects. So a portfolio will come in handy in a lot of different ways.
Wait, hey, Michael, can I pause you? I think that are you using your iPhone microphone or your iPod microphone?
No, I'm using my my computer microphone. It's not great. I can change it.
Because something seems to be kind of like scratching. Or Zane and Connor, are you guys hearing that?
Oh, I can fix that.
Okay, perfect.
1 second. Can you pause?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can kind of talk about, I absolutely agree that not only can this help you get an interview, but I have had people, actually Kinsley Frazier, who was an early podcast guest, when she interviewed for her first job after she got her MBA, they actually asked her to send over her Tableau Public link. So not only can it help, attract people to actually reach out to you for an interview, but then you could actually pull it up during an interview and kind of talk through what all you've done. So, I mean, absolutely, I agree that these are all solid points.
Yeah, it's absolutely game changing, really. For my job, I've really gone quite a few of my jobs actually through my portfolio. So for Scripps Research, I talked about a project I did with some of my classmates, and I'll actually share that project today if you like through Tableau Public. And it's game changing, really. So for those of you that are actually watching the YouTube video, at the moment I'm actually hooking up another microphone. But these are some things that happen sometimes, but it's also good to adapt, like anything for an interview or anything in life, to the circumstances you're given.
Right. Which, I mean, I think this is an extremely innovative approach to, not only is this a great way to market Greensboro College, but also the dean at the business school is actually going to start using some of these lectures for their career and business courses. So, I mean, I feel like this is a big win all around.
So is the audio good enough, or should I switch to this thing I just pulled out of my closet?
No, I think it sounds fine now.
Okay. That's better then. Okay. So again, the goals are building a portfolio in case the editor, wants to go over it. It's really about showing people you can do something. It's better than just talking about it. So portfolios consist of a lot of different things. So Tableau Public, which we'll go over today. A blog, really, because oftentimes data analytics or data science is about communicating your results. And if you can't communicate something that's awesome, then most likely that awesome thing won't be used. Additionally, your portfolios actually consist of your LinkedIn, your Twitter, your presence on various forums. These can be things like Tableau forums for the analytics people out there. It could be things like Stack Overflow, GitHub, Kaggle, and podcast appearances. This is part of my portfolio right now. Maybe it's not the greatest thing because I had a microphone issue, but it still helps because someone has an opportunity to find me and ask me things, and also for me to meet a lot of wonderful people. So as far as the importance of a portfolio, I want to show you an actual real life example. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can probably see it, but for those of you on a podcast, there was a tweet a long time ago from someone from Stack Overflow to David Robinson, who is now a principal data scientist at Heap. And he actually got his start at Stack Overflow because he did a great job answering a question really well on Stack Overflow. And these sort of freak occurrences are actually relatively common, where someone sees something you contributed to the community or something you contributed to, the world at large, and people are really impressed, and they, sometimes reach out to you. So it's not just you applying for jobs. Sometimes people can come to you for a job, which is very powerful. So additionally, portfolios can help you get around an experience requirement. So if you're looking for a job, or you look for jobs in the past, sometimes you might have seen that they ask for very, very high level requirements. And a portfolio is one way to kind of get around those experience requirements. So the common meme is always, how do you get experience if you need experience to get your first job, or, a relevant job? And one way is to actually have independent projects. As far as my portfolio, because this is a common question, because I talk about portfolios often, you can have many different things in your portfolio. Mine is just my online presence. So I have my GitHub, where I've been working on tutorials for years. I have various things I've shared, installation scripts even. It's very funny how a lot of big companies have reached out over installation scripts because they need help installing something. So I've met a lot of wonderful people that way. I have Stack Overflow occasionally, a personal website. I have a blog, which, by the way, I just wrote a blog if you want to like it. And online courses, and that's how I met John David, actually, in a sense. And then additionally, if you're watching on YouTube, you might notice that all these profiles on the screen aren't actually all my own, which is really, really important to emphasize and mention. So on the screen, there's a Tableau Public belonging to a Aricia Stuce. And the reason why I'm showing this here is that if you contribute to a project, oftentimes you work in a group, right? So her project on her Tableau Public has actually gotten me some attention. Additionally, it's gotten her a ton of attention because it's a great project on coronary heart disease rate in San Diego County, and this is Tableau Public. And so it's not all just about, having things on your own page, but if you contribute to great things, people might find you not strictly speaking from your own page. So on the YouTube image, you can see that there's a really old picture of me along with a bunch of colleagues from a master's program. So let me actually get back to the presentation. So additionally, in my portfolio, I have YouTube, which you don't have to have really. A lot of stuff you can just pick and choose what you want to have for your portfolio. There's LinkedIn. So people find you oftentimes through searching on LinkedIn. So it's a great way to meet recruiters, people that are looking to hire people, and so on. I have a Google Scholar. So if you ever done academic papers, having a Google Scholar can help people find you, showcase your work, get more citations if that's what you're into, and so on. Additionally, I'm working on other things, like I'm trying to get a Kaggle presence, really haven't done it yet. And obviously podcast appearances, because it's a great way to meet people, to network, and it shows I can sometimes communicate with people. So as far as actual types of projects to include in a portfolio, there's a lot of great ideas. And some of the best ideas from William Chen, former data scientist manager at Quora, are to find projects that projects where you go beyond like typical homework assignments. So any sort of class final project where you explore an interesting data set and find interesting results. So on the screen here, there's a project from, I believe, eScience Institute from Data Science for Social Good, and just about traffic cruising, in Seattle area, downtown. And one thing just to mention about projects, visualizations are important. READMEs are important if you're working on things on GitHub. Even for Tableau Public, if you have text underneath that says what this project is, context is great. And as far as
a portfolio, oftentimes people just talk about it's all about networking, networking, networking. And the idea of the whole networking thing is it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I think this is kind of overblown in some sense. It's very important to meet people for jobs and connections and those sort of things. Um, but a lot of networking is actually about establishing real connections with a person. So real connections are about, two-way relationships. So when you have a network, you should, have people in it that, you can help, not just people who you think can help you. Because better connections mean better networking, really. And one way to build those better connections is to help someone out. So if you help someone out, they might think better of you and be happier to see you succeed and potentially help you when you need help. So for a small example, if you post a blog on LinkedIn, people in your network might share it to brighten fumble there. So for a small example, if you post a blog on LinkedIn, people in your network might share it to a broader audience, which is really important. More views on your work means more likely someone important that you want to see your work will see it. As a slightly bigger example, if you brought value to your data analytics community, they might be more receptive to referral requests. So if you're asking for a referral, it's better if they've seen some of your work before, and specifically before you ask for a referral. So if you communicate, if you have shown value before, people will more likely take the lead and refer you. You might actually get an interview. So for a larger example, and largest, it's possible someone in your network might reach out to you about jobs to see if you're interested instead of the other way around. So if people see your work, they might be like, hey, there's a great job. I've seen your work. I think you'd be a great candidate. Could you interview for this role? Or they might just give it to you. It's unlikely they'll give it to you, but you might get an interview. So there are normal ways to build a network, of course, and portfolios help with this too. You can attend conferences, join data-related meetup groups, participate in college or bootcamp alumni groups, and connect with people through LinkedIn and Twitter. Of course, one way to get more Twitter followers or to get more Twitter engagement is if you contribute something back to the community. Same thing with LinkedIn. Oftentimes, if people know who you are, they'll reach out and there's more opportunities that way. So as far as the importance of a portfolio, one thing that people kind of undersell sometimes is that interview processes often have case studies or challenges to show that you can actually do the work if you got hired. And companies often send, data analytics, data science problems for you to work on at home, or sometimes at the office when we weren't in the office back in the day before all this started. And the idea of a take-home challenge is to resemble the actual work that you'd be doing on the job. And this is a lot of ways similar to portfolio projects. You have some problem you have to solve. Oftentimes for portfolio projects, you choose your own problem. The only difference in the case study is you have some sort of prompt typically, and you have to figure it out. Sometimes the take-home challenge could be a vague problem. It could be something you kind of have to work through, and it could be messy. And oftentimes you can reference your source code if you're a programmer or a data scientist, or you can reference previous things you've done on Tableau Public, for example. You can look at like, oh, how did I make that visualization, or how did I make that aesthetically pleasing, or whatnot. So if you're a little bit overwhelmed right now, and it's perfectly okay to be, don't worry about if your portfolio is perfect, if you build one, or if you don't have one right now, or in the process of building one. The purpose is really just to show that you have experience, to share how you think, and you'll be really well on your way to impressing, a potential employer, some friends, anyone really. And the image on the screen is success is an iceberg. I'm sure most of you have seen a version of this image before. And it's really just important to mention that sometimes people might not like your portfolio, and there's a lot of opportunities to iterate. So if someone gives you feedback on it, you can always improve it so that the next time someone sees it, your work can be better. Additionally, if you have public work, oftentimes before an interview, if you share it, on LinkedIn or Reddit even, people can come back to you with feedback so that you don't have that feedback come to you in an interview or, some bad situation. So you can fix it before, an important situation occurs. And of course, don't worry about failure. Try to learn from it and not make the same mistakes again. So, portfolio has issues. Oftentimes, you can find your issues or the weaknesses in your skill set by showcasing your work, and so it doesn't happen in other circumstances, and so you can do better in interviews. So that's my talk for today. Any questions?
Let's say Zane or Connor, you got any questions?
So you were talking about just your portfolio being like your online presence.
Mhm.
So I mean, just literally, basically, any time you're putting yourself out there in any way online, that would be kind of under that umbrella.
For the most part, I mean, if you have private accounts, I mean, but if you're putting yourself out there, it's kind of under that umbrella, I guess. So people find you all sorts of ways. It's not just on your resume. I mean, it's pretty hard to stand out on a resume these days if, 1,000 people are applying the same job.
Right.
Yeah, I do think that it's interesting thinking about your LinkedIn as a portfolio piece.
Mhm.
Because actually, could you break that down? Could you go a little bit more into detail? Like, how does your LinkedIn work as a portfolio?
So think of it this way. So on your resume, you often have a link to your LinkedIn, your GitHub, your Tableau Public, and so people from your LinkedIn can go to your other pieces of content, right?
Mhm.
Additionally, people can find you through your blog, or if you have a blog, to your LinkedIn, and vice versa. So the more links you have out there to your LinkedIn, the more likely people will find you. Additionally, sometimes you share, blogs on LinkedIn or talks, or you have followers, and that's kind of your public presence as well. People often think, oh, LinkedIn's just, one thing you need, but it can really help you get traction for your other things. And each thing that feeds into something else kind of gets the engine started, so to speak. I think it's really important. The more pieces of content you have out there, the more likely people will find you through any means necessary.
Right. I think you have to start thinking of it as an ecosystem that
Mhm.
kind of like feeds itself. And because what's interesting is that so I'm taking kind of an iterative approach to
Mhm.
getting this content out to more people, to where we had never created a LinkedIn event for one of our live chats.
Mhm.
But I mean, we had 200 people sign up to go to attend the live chat for the
Mhm.
last podcast episode.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is it's kind of a permeable, like not only are people coming from LinkedIn to our YouTube channel, but then I would say 50% of our traffic during that hour came from just browse within YouTube. So it's
Mhm.
like you have like this whole ecosystem of people coming from one platform to another. And if you put out really good content, people are going to want to like binge. Well, I guess
Mhm.
they would binge videos, but they might check out multiple articles. Which you did mention writing on Medium, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So people have found my LinkedIn through my Medium. They've asked me questions about my articles on LinkedIn sometimes, which I really prefer if they do in the comment section. But send me questions over LinkedIn too. Um, but those articles have gotten me so much attention, so many extra views on my LinkedIn. There's no rational reason I'd get so many messages on LinkedIn if not for my blog or when I occasionally used to post YouTube videos and that sort of thing. So everything feeds into each other.
What I find really interesting is that, so I'm teaching a class at HPU
Mhm.
right now as well, and one of the requirements for my class was to take 2 LinkedIn Learning courses and then share it.
Mhm.
And one of my students shared it, and then I commented on it to kind of amplify the
Mhm.
sound, and they got 3 interview requests from
Mhm.
just that one specific. Like they were like, oh wow, look, you're doing the work, you're in this space. So I
Mhm.
mean, it's really interesting how kind of seamless it is to put something on LinkedIn, catch the eye of someone who is looking to hire exactly for that specific position or skill
Mhm.
set.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to find someone through like cold search. And oftentimes people have so many people, coming to their door, here's my resume. And people often find you through other means. So not that, applying for jobs is a bad thing. I recommend people when they're looking for a job, apply like 300 to 500 jobs if they're just going, their front door. But yeah.
Right. Well, that kind of makes me think of this concept of adverse selection.
Hmm.
So, well, actually, I'm kind of curious. You're smiling. Where do you think I'm going with kind of this idea thread?
I'll let you just, go down your thread.
So the worst time to look for a job is when you don't have a job.
Yeah, of
To
course.
to where if you are doing really good work, and see, I think that the piece that I would say most people in the analytics space are missing out on is that they're probably doing really good work, but they're not
Hmm.
amplifying it.
Yeah.
And I think that that totally makes sense because if I, am working as a full-time analyst and I just came out with an insight that was worth $50,000, I can't show that on
Hmm.
LinkedIn. And I
Yeah, of
think I,
course.
I think that's the problem that a portfolio solves is that you can do really good work that is public facing because if you're killing it and nobody knows, then I
Hmm.
mean, it matters within your specific organization, but and maybe the people who know that manager directly and they're talking, but you're not going to get that amplified
Oh
kind of
yeah, of
voice out
course.
there.
And of course, doing a portfolio after a day job it's work. So that's why if you do a project, try to make something you kind of enjoy. Um, but yeah, you always want to protect yourself in case layoffs happen. It was a crazy year, and it still is kind of crazy versus previous years, where constantly being vigilant is probably a good thing as far as jobs a little bit. So make sure you always have something to share, or some work that you can showcase, because things happen. People get laid off. Someone in your circle will get laid off at some point, just because that's the way jobs work. And it may not be that you're doing a bad job, it's just, it happens. Um, and so one thing I also want to go off on a brief tangent about, is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
It's
Absolutely.
so, because a lot of students are listening to this. So students who are out there, please, please, please apply for jobs. If you're graduating, uh, and sometimes, full-time or big companies allow you to do internships after you graduate. One of the best ways to get a job is to kind of have a little experience. One way to get experience is to intern. So in addition to applying full-time jobs if you're graduating, apply for internships that you're eligible for. The reason is you need a job. And sometimes job searches can take 6 months, 3 months, 2 months, sometimes longer. And the best way to improve your presence and more likely to get a full-time job is to have an internship. So please just apply for things. It'll make your life so much easier, you know? Especially now where people are out of work for like a year.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think I was actually talking about this last episode with Sharon. How bad was the analytics slash data science kind of skill set or industry as a whole hit by what's going on now?
Well, the thing about just job market in general, it's the bars keep on getting higher and higher, I'd say. So, people to get, laid off, um, it's harder to get that same job again. So it's because a lot of people are looking for jobs.
Hmm.
So I think there's also just more people in this space. So it's hard to get a job. So it's that effect, plus layoffs, and getting equal employment is really hard to what you had previous.
Interesting. So I
Mhm.
did want to kind of touch back to one of the points that you
Sure.
made about how if you are working full time or going to school full time, doing that and building a portfolio is a lot of work.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of got a little bit of a hack here in that you can make it feel like it's a social slash something you do for fun and enjoyment,
Mhm.
especially if you're doing it in a group setting.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
and this is like some advice that we gave someone who actually his name was, I think it was Marco, this guy in Switzerland who was looking to get a volunteer position where he's analyzing data.
Hmm.
And the advice I gave him is that, well, find what you're interested in, or like kind of reflect on what you're interested in, and then find the organizations that are helping within that space.
Hmm.
So, for example, for me, I volunteer. I was on the board of directors for a local nonprofit that focused on entrepreneurship because I really care about small businesses specifically in my area, and then
Hmm.
having that data analysis skill set is just it's like a unicorn specifically in that space.
Yeah, I mean, you're helping out people, you're helping out yourself, not just for having portfolio projects or whatnot, getting more skills, because skills are important, right? It's not just, oh, I got to refer to a job. You have to actually have the skills to get the job. So it's a great way to help someone else out, yourself, learn something, and it's stuff you'd be doing anyway, really. Hopefully.
True. All right, Connor, you've been quiet. You got any questions?
Yeah, I was thinking about when you were talking about take-home problems on interviews.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't had a data science interview yet. How prevalent are take-home problems? Because that's a totally new concept I've never heard before.
So they are pretty prevalent, especially right now where people are working from home. Here's some challenge, or you make a presentation if you're in developer relations or whatever. But for a lot of data analytics, data science, they're like, here's a data set, show me something with it, solve this problem. If you're doing machine learning, create an algorithm or get an algorithm that has a certain effectiveness, certain accuracy, certain whatever. And they're pretty common. And the one way to check if a big company especially has case studies is go on their Glassdoor and see what the interview process is like, see what questions they ask. The time to study for an interview is probably before you actually apply sometimes. I mean, apply like crazy. But once you get the interview, checking Glassdoor to see what's there, to see if you actually do have a case study and what they ask. So you can get that extra little edge. But yeah, they're common. To answer your question, yes, they're very common. Have you gone through a lot of interviews yet?
Connor? I think he froze.
It's okay.
So my students, I don't think have had very many analytics interviews yet. So we're just starting the last semester of their senior year of undergrad. Zane, I think you actually talked about you may actually be going to grad school. Like you're kind of debating the pros and the cons of going directly from undergrad to grad school, which, I mean, I know this is a little bit of a curveball here, but Michael, what's your opinion on that? Because I feel like that's a common question that quite a few of my students are having right now.
So really quick on your specific thing, Zane, regardless of whether you go to grad school or not next year or the year after, my advice is this: apply for internships anyway. On the off chance that you decide to, or full-time jobs, on the off chance that you decide not to go to grad school. Always have your options open so you're not stuck choosing one thing or another, because sometimes financial considerations come about, or you decide grad school is not for me today, at least. But as far as jobs and stuff, the barrier to entry gets higher and higher. And one advantage of doing grad school is it's easier to get internships, while you're doing school or during the summers or whatever. So there's an advantage there. The problem is that grad school is expensive if you're doing a master's. If you're doing a PhD, you should get it funded. It should be fully funded if it's a big school or a high-end school. So my advice for you, just to break down really simply, apply for jobs anyway, no matter if you're 98% sure you want to do grad school. Worst case scenario, you do, or a good scenario would be, yes, you do an internship the summer before grad school, you get experience, so that when you're done with grad school, you also have experience to get another job. The cost of grad school, yes, it's expensive. There's a great opportunity to get internships, but the downside of grad school is the time. It takes a couple of years to go through grad school. Maybe it's even a year. So my advice is keep your options open, apply for everything. And if grad school is expensive, if you absolutely need to do it, do it. If you need to get, one sec, let me actually formulate my thought here for this last part. Say it very, very nicely. The one problem with grad school is you don't always get to choose what you want to learn if you're doing a master's. If you're doing a PhD, after 2 years, you get your own, leeway, so to speak. Sometimes classes in grad school are not always updated. They could be very ancient because professors, oftentimes a lot of big schools, they care about their research. They don't necessarily care about teaching. because they get promoted based on research often. So just keep that in mind.
I love it. I love having both sides. I feel like because Sharon, who was our guest last week, works for Wake Forest University. So she was very much go gung ho, go to grad school. So I feel like I'm doing like what, news media claims to do, where it's like you get the full story, you get both sides of what's going on. Because I do think that I am somewhat skeptical of higher ed, but at the same time, I see I see both sides of it. I don't want people to feel like I'm pushing them in one direction or the other. The only thing I'm pushing is like, think about it deeply.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing to consider is everyone has different motivations. So a grad school's motivation is get more enrollment, keep the money train going, so to speak. Boot camps too. And so it's very easy for everyone to promise, hey, you'll get a job 110% because our grad school is great, or our boot camp's great, or this online class is great. But think about like the results previous people have had. Have they gotten jobs? Has the average student in XYZ gotten a job for what they're doing? Keep in mind for grad school, if you're taking out a student loan, what's the interest rate? Do you know how compound interest works? Will your loan grow exponentially? Will it double every 8 years or whatever, depending on your interest rate? Can you pay off the principal based on the career that you want? If you're going to get paid $60K and your grad school debt is going to be $100K, well, think about how long they'll take to pay off after taxes.
I feel like that should be a requirement of what are you going to earn? What are you going to take out? You do the math. Here's the math in red print before you go. I don't think it applies to data science or analytics, because I think that if you get a master's in either one of those, you're probably going to be making a lot of money.
Yeah.
But,
even then, apply to multiple grad schools and look at the prices, you can be saving that money. You can be putting to your 401k or Roth or whatever, because it's costly. You think, oh, I'll make 100K. Even then, if you have 100K in debt, it takes time to pay off. You're not exactly putting 100K each year to your debt, So.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we've kind of nailed the presentation was fantastic. I feel like they've got so much to go off there. I feel like we've totally switched up the order, because you were like, hey, let's do Q&A. I was planning on doing the interactive. So
we can work Q&A on Friday.
The what?
We can work Q&A later if you want.
We can. That's the thing. It's an revolving Q&A. That's just my life right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I think we're going to I'm going to screen share and pull up Zane's Tableau public page, and then we can go over to Connor's as well.
Sure.
So Zane, what specific visualization do you want us, or what?
So the Ryder Cup one, you could do that one, or you're welcome to do the golf stats, either one.
Can you go back to his profile and scroll up, please? I'm just kind of. So Zane, where's the photo?
It's going to be added later today. So I'm going to go there.
Okay, so just comment. Yes, photo's great, but the views on your stuff are relatively lower. So hopefully we put your Tableau public links to your projects in the comment section for this if it's on YouTube. But also try to share this stuff a little bit more with people. Anyway, let's go to your project now.
Yeah, so that's something that I'm trying to get them more involved in doing, is not only doing the work, but making sure that eyes get on it. And I think that Greensboro College is actually starting to share these pages on their LinkedIn profile.
Okay, I like it. It's very visually appealing. So you want to tell us a little bit about your project?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I should give you some background, like play golf. That's pretty much my entire life. For anybody who doesn't know what the Ryder Cup is, every 2 years, United States and Europe play each other, team wise, and they pick the teams within some points and all kinds of stuff. But I just wanted to look at the statistics of real United States players versus the European players, and then even came up with like that the player effectiveness kind of rating. I did that through winning percentage, and then adding on some it's just kind of an arbitrary value that I made up.
Mhm.
Just trying to be able to rate them somehow, because one guy may play 5 matches and go 2-3, and then one guy may play 40, but may only win 10 and tie, however many other ones. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. So you got all the players on the left, and you can highlight and pick them on the graph. But I thought it was something that definitely interested in me. I was curious because within the world, there's all kinds of stuff going on with this.
Mhm. So it looks great. I like the Ryder Cup image because it tells you exactly what this is about. So I'm kind of not always super helpful with Tableau Public, but one thing I'd like to see here, and it's again more work, you could always do a blog post or something, like a quick write-up, even like a README or something about what this is showing, not necessarily on this visualization, but a link to learn more about how things are calculated, why they're calculated, the goal of the project, those sort of things.
Okay.
I'm sure you probably did some sort of write-up for this assignment, maybe, potentially. So it'd be good to see. So especially I'd like to see what is PER? It sounds like basketball. Basketball PER at least. Wins, losses is good. Of course, you can filter. And there's some sort of interactive part with the graph. So great, I like this. I don't have any more feedback for you for this.
I do.
Yeah.
I have some feedback.
Mhm.
So what visualizations are you using within this?
What do you mean by that?
So, okay. So so this is a dashboard.
Right.
What have you used to visualize the data?
I don't know.
This isn't a tough
I'm
question.
still a little-
You've used a scatter chart to show.
quite literally.
Right.
Oh,
Right. I was gonna say, wait, did you do this?
that one went over my head.
Wait, did someone just steal that? Did you just steal this from someone and put it
No,
on
we
here? This is your work, right?
The scatter plot. I think he's trying to get you to say like, oh yeah, this is a scatter plot, so people, listen.
Right. Well, but so for those of you who are listening to this as a podcast episode, so we have our KPIs along the top, which are US wins, US win percentage, European win percentage, and Europe wins. So those KPIs are great. And I really do like the scatter chart, but let's talk about this table. So you have an individual match statistics table that shows the full name. So Phil Mickelson is on the top. Then you have that. So you created the PER.
Yeah, I named it PER, and then I was like, oh, PER in basketball, and then so I just took it out and put PE in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got PR, so that's kind of like the sorting mechanism of like who's doing the best. Win
Right.
percentage, wins and count, loss and count, halves and matches.
Mhm.
So how is this visualized? And this is basically 1/3 of what's being visualized here.
So are you talking about like how did I calculate the effectiveness rating itself?
I'm saying what tool are you using to communicate insight within the individual match statistics?
Well, I'm using like I said earlier, I'm using the graph based off of that the PER ratings, and then with the entire chart there, or the chart with everybody's names and everything on there. I was trying to think of like a better way to do that, but with so many numbers, like I couldn't find. I was having a hard time figuring out how to visualize that without simply just putting it on there, and then mainly using that graph for the visual representation of it.
So what I think I would do is what is the most important individual match statistic?
The PE rating.
So what I would do personally is I would put that as a bar chart, because right now you're using a table, and it's just, this would be really good if like an accountant or a CFO were looking at this visualization. But if it's a person who is a golf fan or, even a marketer, their eyes are going to glaze over because, a third of the page is just very small numbers
Mm-hmm.
to where we can see these numbers in absolute value, but we cannot see the relative, like how much better is Phil Mickelson than Nick Faldo?
That's actually a really good point. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Zane, I'm not trashing you. I think that this is a great visualization, and I think this is a really good portfolio piece because it gets to show off, maybe the person you're going to be interviewing with is a golf fan as well, and you could say, hey, here's this visualization that I created to talk about the Ryder Cup, and then maybe that's a connection point. Even if you showed them as is, I think they would be pretty impressed. But what I would do is have that PER statistic visualized in a bar chart, and then you can see not only you could quantify the absolute value by having, the bars labeled, but then also you see the relationship between, because Phil Mickelson is a 34.12. Curtis Strange is an 8.09. So that is a huge difference that you're not quite getting out of just this table.
Gotcha.
The one thing I'd also like to see is whether it's, having another sheet on, in Tableau or something, explaining, how PER is calculated, those sort of things would be lovely. Context is beautiful.
And I think that, Michael, now I'm the one getting criticized here. When we built out our case studies, I think I was too focused on the effectiveness of their dashboards.
Oh, I see.
Didn't focus on the context, which I think, you've made an argument of my teaching style needs to improve and say, maybe instead of a dashboard, we need to put together a storyboard.
Yeah, at least just even in the description section for something on Tableau Public, or if you have a report on this or something, say how things are calculated. I know you probably have it somewhere, but it's always nice to know, especially if you're showing it to someone high up there, like, oh, how's this calculated? Like you have it like right there, it's nice.
Okay.
Yeah, and Zane, one last thing on that, turning that table into a bar chart. You could put in a tooltip so that when you hover over one of the bars, all the other statistics are listed out, like win percentage, loss, halves, matches.
Okay, yeah.
Or you could even, if you wanted to, so let's say that PER is the most important statistic, so that's what's in the bar. Maybe you would want to also identify a second most important metric. So let's say the second most important is matches. You could then do a color gradient of saying which one had the highest score, and then also communicate through the color which one, the concentration of matches. So like if it's dark blue, if someone had 43 matches, and if someone had 17, then it'd be a light blue.
Okay.
Yeah. And keep in mind with all of our feedback, we're nitpicking in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, a good way to learn, but a lot of your work is great so far.
So far.
Yeah,
that's hilarious. No, we mean this criticism is coming from a place of appreciation and support. We're not like
right. Yeah.
To drag you guys down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're not trying to drag you down. Connor, on the other hand, here, moving right along. Which one do you want us to completely destroy with our criticism?
I'm most proud of the Green College golf statistics one.
Cool. And you have 151 views. Good.
So this one, we've actually already had Ken G come on and critique. So did you actually implement the advice that Ken gave you?
Yes, the bogeys and birdies per round, I highlighted those and made the average percentile, the team one gray, and on the bar charts on the left too.
Awesome. Well, I guess let's catch Michael up on what this specific visualization is.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So me and Zane are both golfers at Greensboro College. And I took our stats for all the tournaments we played in our 2019-2020 season and compiled them all together and made it interactive too, so you can compare yourself to other people on the team. And then the average percentile is related to other teams we play against in the field we play against, and how us individually rank in the field we're playing in.
Oh, this is cool. It also gives you a big indication of, where everyone's strengths and weaknesses are in theory.
Mhm.
This is awesome.
Yes, that was one thing Kenji was trying to get the focus on. What was the purpose for it? And so it could be used individually in the team to go, oh, well, not to pick on you, Zane, but your par 5 average was higher than the team average. And so like maybe that's something you need to work on. And then from a coaching perspective, you can also average percentile and go, oh, well, Scott places in the top percentile most of the time we play in tournaments. So that makes my decision to choose him to be in the lineup for the next tournament a little easier, knowing that he's always there in the top.
Yeah, data backed, starting and benching, so to speak.
Mhm.
In a harsh case scenario.
Mhm.
So I really like this. And again, I think Ken said it with, he was asking for context.
Mhm.
So it's a great visualization. It's very informative. Looks like there's tooltips. I can't really see it on the screen right now. Oh, cool. Tooltips. Good.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it gives you a lot of information, but, an about page, maybe a readme. It'd be nice for people that just come to this, organically to be like, oh, what's going on here? Because it's very clear when you tell me this, what's going on here. But for a lot of people that find things randomly, because it'll happen because your things being shown often,
Mhm.
I'd like to know context. So read
And
me.
I think I did, but I don't know if I've updated it since Kenji's video at the for the whole Tableau page.
Cool, but this is awesome. You can see how everyone's doing relative to the team.
Mhm.
You can see average scores, average percentiles.
Mhm.
So I really like this. You can see, it'd be nice to see like variance in some cases, because a lot of what you have is averages. I'm just nitpicking really at this point. To see if, yes, this person's great, but sometimes you just need someone that, has a small variance that they'll, hit this score. They're not going to do great maybe, but they won't, destroy the entire team average, That's just a thought. Yeah, perfect. I like this.
Yeah, I feel like this one is really nice, and also too, you can highlight the name and then it shows up, So Zane, this is what we're talking about, where you can see the relationship compared to other people.
Right. Yeah.
And then you hover over it, and then you have the absolute value.
Mm-hmm.
So there was one more visualization that I did want to share.
Mm-hmm.
So hold on. Actually, let's see. Oh, we do have a picture here.
Yes, good.
Oh, a little bit. So, okay. I've got a question for you, Michael. What do you do about these kind of like little bios here?
Well, it depends on if your bio allows links or not. So if they allow links in bios, I'm always like, throw your links in there, He has like a link to his LinkedIn on his Tableau Public, looks like. Awesome. So it's possible I'd find his profile because I like his analysis, and I can go to his LinkedIn.
Also, too, one thing to note, to kind of getting back to that ecosystem, if you come over to his LinkedIn profile, which, by the way, I did want to show this off to you. He actually used Photoshop to shop himself into his background.
Good. It's another skill too,
Yeah. So now in the featured section of his LinkedIn, we can actually click on this specific link. But I do really like thinking about your LinkedIn page as I'm now starting to think about it as more of a landing page for people to find out more about you and your portfolio.
Yes, absolutely. It's an opportunity.
All right, so let's go back to Connor's profile. And I did want to talk about this one. So I think it's cool that both of you guys have done golf visualizations, but it would be also beneficial, for those of you who are listening, to make sure that you have some that are, kind of modeled after a more business focused setting too. Because I think that this is actually the last case study we did as a group together, and we created, this survey analysis. So now we can use this. How do you say it? Is it Likert or Likert scale,
I don't know.
Michael?
I
I
should know.
thought you were the data scientist here. I thought you were supposed
We,
to know.
we both taught data viz classes. I mean, this is kind of like a gradient kind of color scheme here, which is good.
Right. So this is a Likert scale here.
Yeah, it's like a stacked bar chart kind of.
So we can drill down and see what females think about the product according to these 4 different questions. So I do think that it's nice to have something that is modeled specifically after problems you might solve in a business setting as well.
So this is nice. So you can see, you can filter by age, product number, gender, and then you get the count of number of individuals, I assume, and their, product rating. So just one thing, just to give feedback. So on the little dashboard, you can, click from side to side to go from male to female and such. One thing and all, I kind of prefer a drop down there. Honestly, it's just my, feedback. It's not, do this or else, because especially these days, it's just nice to have a drop down so you can choose what you want instead of, you don't know what you're going to get if you click right or left or whatever, always.
Well, now I'm personally offended because this is what we did in class.
Oh, hey, I mean.
No, I'm just kidding.
It's also very.
I like the scroll bar, but I could see why you would want it to be a drop down menu. I feel like from a UI standpoint, though, a drop down menu is not as effective.
Okay, yeah, I'm not a UI expert, so it's just my my feedback on that.
Right. No, I like the debate though.
Hey, I mean, we've got a lot of database classes, especially in the Tableau and other stuff. I just use Python mostly.
All right, so now let's move on. You said you've got a GitHub profile that you wanted to review.
Yeah, so I was really impressed with this GitHub for a lot of reasons, and I'll chat about this before. So what you see on the screen right now, by the way, is just some Tableau Public from something I did in my master's with a couple colleagues. So again, if people help you out in a project, try to give some page to, shout out people. Always help people that help you, which is very nice. This is a great project. Anyway, so this is my friend Jay's GitHub. And so GitHub, for those of you that are listening there in data analytics, GitHub is a place to share code and to share, how this code is made, some context behind it. And these days, GitHub is very essential just to show that, you can work in a coding environment. So you can do pull requests, you understand software development a little bit. Even though you're in data science, you kind of learn a lot about every little thing. So on Jay's GitHub, he has a really great README about him where he says, hi, I'm here. Here's my link to my LinkedIn. I have a link to his Twitter, which is great. I can find out more about Jay if I'd like to. Additionally, again, link to LinkedIn in multiple places. On profiles, it's okay to have the same link to the same thing in multiple different places because sometimes people may not find it otherwise, as long as you're not going completely overboard. And he says he got a certificate from UC San Diego in data science visualization. Awesome job. And he says about his interests, which is good because this is kind of like an about me page. And resumes, I really don't like the, hey, I'm a team player and those sort of things. I don't think they add value. But I'm kind of like, on a GitHub, you can give more space. The one issue here is I do find it a bit long in some cases because it takes me a little bit to find out, his projects that are pinned because I find this more important than this.
Michael, can you explain? So
Yeah.
I don't know anything about GitHub. So
Sure.
you're actually teaching the teacher in this
Yeah.
situation. So I know that GitHub is a way that you can host
So,
data science projects.
Yeah.
So kind of walk us through, what are we looking at right now?
So we're looking at his About Me page on his GitHub. Not everyone has these. This is actually kind of a newer feature, but it's good. It shows, he's very aware of new things on GitHub. And so I can also go to his personal projects. This is under construction. So I'm sure if you actually look at this, a couple weeks from now or months from now, you'll see. But there is ability to find, code and see, what they're working on, what they've done. You can see different projects. So he has a project they contributed to about, happiness. So there's a README about like, hey, what's he doing? You can find his code about this project. He links it, which is nice. Oftentimes when I go to GitHubs, occasionally when I used to do like a little bit of hiring, very occasionally, it'd be really hard to understand what they're doing by just looking at code. Like, especially if it's just like a Python file, I'd be like, okay, so they have some data, they're cleaning it, but without context about like why they're doing it and those sort of things, it's not very useful to me. But what he does have, which is awesome, is his key findings. So as far as happiness, he looked at 3 years of data, the highest overall happiness scores in Switzerland, Iceland, blah blah. And there's heat maps. You can see where these things take place. And then he has graphs supporting his analysis, which is great, and so on, which is fantastic. One thing I don't like here is you can see this graph on the screen. It's happiness versus air pollutants by country. So one thing that often happens in Python, and again, this is hard for people to fix, is a lot of text is going over each other. So if you can find a way, and again, this is hard, it's like advanced matplotlib here, to not have your text overrun each other, that'd be lovely. Again, really hard to fix. It'd be really impressive if we had, text not running over itself. So again, more graphs, and then heat maps, and then files, and then about the analysis, how it was done, where the data is, and also links to his LinkedIn. I like this. And so this is wonderful because I can see the code, I can see the analysis, the files, and a great README. Again, please do a README. Put some effort into it if you're putting code on GitHub.
This is so fascinating to me because this is like an article.
Yes, and he did a great job.
Well, it's making me realize how poor of a job I've done from a storytelling perspective.
No, I mean, it's all your work, but it depends on the context, right? If it's code, yes, you need to explain what's going on.
Well, no, I mean, I'm not being overly critical of myself. I'm saying like I'm grateful that I've found an opportunity to kind of get even better at things.
Yeah.
Because I think that the way that I've been looking at Tableau Public is that, the manager or your friend is going to be here in the room with you, and you're going to be looking at it together. To where this is all self-explanatory, and it kind of, it tells a whole story and gives you context, and also supports what it's saying with charts and visualizations.
Yeah.
It's just a very different approach than kind of how I've conceptualized how I've been teaching case studies.
Well, it's great. I mean, oftentimes, yes, someone's in the room with you, but as things scale, most of the time they actually won't be. If you get popular, basically, or a lot of people see your work. So on a resume, oftentimes people like Jay's resume. Let me just go over it. One thing I really like about his resume is there's links. I can find his LinkedIn. I can find his GitHub. He has a podcast. Super impressive.
I say maybe we need to bring him on.
Yeah.
Teach us even more.
Yeah. But on his project section, so he has, summary. By the way, I do not like summaries. I hate them. Hate's a strong word. So I would say it doesn't distinguish you. You have so much great work, Jay, just if you're listening to this later on. You have, awesome projects. You have, a lot of great skills. You have great education. You've worked in entrepreneurship. You've, done marketing. You've done so many impressive things. And the summary here is just very generic. Anyone can say they're a team player. it doesn't distinguish you from other people when your work actually does distinguish you.
So wait, Michael, have you looked into JobScan? Like, do you understand? I guess that sounded condescending. Do you understand this? Are you familiar with ATS systems and like
Yeah.
how? Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that because we just had Sharon break down like actually ran Zane's resume through JobScan, and if it says team player, if that shows up 6 times in the resume, you need to have that keyword, unfortunately, in your resume.
So here's the thing. It depends on the role you're looking for. And if a hiring manager is looking at this, it doesn't set you apart. It's there. Yes. Applicant tracking systems, they look through things. But one thing people look for in like programming roles and analytics roles, they look for the skills. If you don't have the skills for the job, then your resume is in the garbage. So more space for skills, I think, is a lot more important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I guess the point that I was kind of bringing up was that
your resume will not be seeing if team player's not in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do not like it. We can disagree on this. I do think that Pacific applicant tracking system, maybe it was for like recruiter. It was set to recruiter mode, looking for other recruiters or like a marketing person or something. I just think it doesn't distinguish people at all.
Okay.
And I think most people's softwares, probably if they're looking for an analyst, do not care about team player on the resume. They can find that out if they just interview them.
So you're not team player. Got it.
No, I'm not. Not at all. So looking back at Jay's resume, he has programming, different languages, Python, SQL, JavaScript, Git Bash, GitHub, etc. He has analytics, machine learning. So he has different libraries for machine learning, dashboarding. I like it. And he also has marketing business stuff. So, I mean, depending on when you organize your skills, you can also just say, programming languages, tools maybe would be better because some, Tableau, Excel, you can put in tools maybe, and just nitpick. And then, those sort of things. He has projects, and like on all of his projects, I can go to his projects. I can see that, hey, he did something and he explained his, thing. So he has a project on presidential tweets or whatever. Mm-hmm. He has a disclaimer, which is great, about like, hey, I don't support any politician or anything. I'm just looking at data.
Right.
Very important, especially in the world we live in. Additionally, he has, he created, a website, based on some project, awesome,
He seems extremely impressed. Like, how many people have it pretty, he calls himself a novice, but I mean, if he's coding all this, that seems like pretty advanced coding skills and pretty advanced, not only knowing the skills, but also like running businesses.
Yeah, I mean, it's very impressive because he also has context. He doesn't just have the skills for programming. He has the market, know-how, so to speak. He knows the importance between merging coding and business cases, which a lot of people don't have. So that's what you can see from his projects, and there's links to everything he's done. So he has a project, great. I'm curious about what's going on here. So he developed, a visualization showing the effects of COVID on biking patterns. Maybe it'd be nice to show, numbers like, biking patterns went up 35%, our analysis shows, or, I saved the company X dollars if this was experienced section. So, but again, he has a link from his resume to his Tableau Public. I have a bad gateway right here, but I think that's more my internet at this point. Oh, so I can see it now. So I can, go look at his project. Maybe the dashboard could be better, maybe, who knows? But at the top of his thing, he has, context, about, COVID and bike analysis. So I can find out, what he's looking at here. So it's context. And then of course he says what tools were used for the project. Great. Because oftentimes people look for keywords in resumes, even in applicant tracking systems, and he has them. And of course, he has experience here, which is great. He's really done a lot of stuff. He has links to, his product. He has links to a website, a place he worked. He has also his education. So if you're more experienced, typically your education goes at the bottom of your resume, and he's more experienced. But it's up to you. So I really like his profile.
See why?
Yeah. And yeah, I'm super impressed by him. And if for some reason he's, somewhere in the future not working, scoop him up, he does a great job.
Yeah. Actually, we can bring up a whole new Q&A section because I know Connor has wanted to talk about coding languages. So Connor, you're getting your degree in math right now. And I know that you literally reached out to me, 2 or 3 days ago about how to learn R. I guess let me just, facilitate this conversation. Michael Galarnik is the person you need to be having all of these conversations with, not me.
So first of all, why do you want to learn R?
Well, I know a lot of the future math stuff I kind of want to dive into uses R. And I mean, I have some coding background and I've taken some classes in Java and C++. And I would eventually like to learn Python, but right now with the math classes I have, I'm like, well, R is probably going to be more beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of statistical packages and algorithms are implemented in R, right? So a couple ways to learn R. So there's the data science specialization on Coursera that's, been around since Coursera was founded, I'd say, for a while. That's through Johns Hopkins. So that's one way to learn. And one benefit of that is people that do specializations in Coursera, those people eventually get jobs and they eventually give interviews. So a lot of interview questions come from very popular Coursera or LinkedIn Learning classes. So I've seen interview questions come from that specialization. You can not even get the certificates or anything. I don't think certificates are super valuable as a whole. You can just audit them and do the assignments if possible. So that's one way. LinkedIn Learning is great. And there's so many different ways to learn online these days. So I know there's 1,000 LinkedIn Learning classes. If you have access to them still, use them. So that's one way. And the other way to learn is have a project or something you've done in Tableau and try to do the same analysis in R. And that way you can be like, oh yeah, what I'm doing is actually correct, And that way, when you get to the more statistical stuff or the more mathy stuff, you'll probably get logic errors in how you set up your math problem more so than programming errors. Because when people start, they're like, I have some difficult thing I want to do. And I'm like, great. And they're like, what's wrong with my code? I'm like, or what's wrong here? I'm like, well, you have a programming error here and you also have a logic error. So if you learn the basics of R first and then do your math stuff, you're probably a little bit better off. So you can just only have logic errors if you get an error. You seem smart. You probably get, very few errors and stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I think that how long have we been talking for? Like an hour and 15, hour and a half right now?
Yeah.
I feel like these can just, we're like doing the Joe Rogan thing where it's just going to there's going to be a 3-hour podcast episode. But I think that we're pretty much wrapped up. Connor or Zane, do you have any more questions?
No, I don't think I have any.
Yeah, I think you answered the questions I had.
Awesome. And Michael, thank you for answering the questions about coding that I couldn't answer. This is why I'm bringing all these experts together.
Hey, we all learn from each other, right? I learn from you every day, So,
yeah, that's true.
Because your portfolio, I can learn, things from you anytime I want.
That's true.
You can search.
Awesome. Well, Michael, thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed this.
Thanks. I really enjoyed it too. And thanks for having me again.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.